So let's move on to engagement letters for assurance and non-assurance engagement. Engagement letters for these two. You have seen that these two entail or involve a professional or practitioner. So the second aspect or subtopic is engagement letters for assurance and non-assurance engagements. Engagement letters for assurance and non-assurance engagements. Engagement letters. These again candidates we covered, but what is an engagement letter in the context of assurance and non-assurance engagements? So this is simple, candidates. An engagement letter is a formal contract or agreement between a professional service provider, such as an auditor, and their client. So that's the meaning of an engagement letter. An engagement letter is a formal contract between a professional service provider and the client. It is a formal contract between a professional service provider, such as an auditor, and the client. It is a contract. It is a contract. It outlines the terms, it outlines the conditions of their engagement. Okay? Because we've seen the professional is engaged. The company seeks the services of a professional. So there has to be, it's an agreement between the two parties. So an engagement letter is a contract between these two parties which outlines the terms and conditions of the engagement, including the scope of work, the responsibilities of both parties, the fees, and even other relevant details. So what we are required to know here, candidates, is the content. What is the content? What are the elements? What are the elements of engagement, an engagement letter? What are the contents? What is contained within such an engagement letter? Scope of work. Scope of work, because while the specific contents may vary depending on the nature and the complexity of the engagement, both assurance and non-assurance engagement letters generally include certain elements. If it is a letter, then we may have the introduction and identification. Introduction before we get to the scope, and identification. If it's a letter, then there has to be an introductory part of that letter, which clearly states the parties involved, and these parties could be the auditor and the client. The introductory part also identifies maybe the financial statements or the subject matter that is to be audited. You understand? So there has to be that introductory part, Hilary, before you come to the scope and objective. Objective and scope. There's the introductory and identification part where the parties are introduced. Then there is the objective of the engagement. This letter has to define the purpose of the engagement and the level of assurance that is to be provided if it is an assurance engagement, like reasonable assurance. Here we also have to be introduced to the specific procedures to be performed and any other limitations on the scope. You understand? Hilary also cited responsibilities. That is true. Responsibilities. Responsibilities. Number 3. Responsibilities. Responsibilities. The letter has to clearly delineate. It has to delineate the responsibilities of both the auditor or the practitioner and the client. This part emphasizes also the client's responsibility for preparing the financial statements if it is an assurance engagement, and also providing necessary information and access. That is the part of the responsible party. Within this letter, under responsibilities, may also have the practitioner's responsibilities to conduct, say, an audit in accordance with the relevant auditing standards and so on. Responsibilities of both parties. The third element or fourth element is fees and billing. Fees and billing. Fees and billing. This is a professional service which the responsible party has to pay. So the letter specifies the engagement. The letter has also, apart from highlighting or specifying the agreed upon fees, the letter has to outline the billing arrangement and payment terms. You understand? Billing arrangements. How will the professional be billing the client? What are the arrangements? There ought to be also any other additional expenses or what we call out-of-pocket costs that are to be incurred or may be incurred, that may be incurred. Out-of-pocket expenses that may be incurred must be part of the fees and the billing within the engagement letter. I don't know why Hilary stopped identifying the elements. I expected you by now to have given me timing and deadlines. Timing and deadlines. Timing and deadlines. The letter has to establish the expected time frame for the assurance on an assurance engagement. The timing has to be identified, candidates, because this is a contract. The practitioner is to agree with the client on the timing. All right, what's the time frame? Establish the expected time frame for the engagement. Are there any key deadlines for field work, for example, reporting, and even management responses? Because the practitioner may require responses from the personnel of his client, so there has to be agreement within the engagement letter, within the contract, as to whether there are any expected deadlines for, say, management responses or any other matter. The letter has also to acknowledge any potential delays or changes in schedule. That has to be identified within the agreement. Timing and deadlines are very key element of an engagement letter. 6, communication and reporting. Communication and reporting. Communication and reporting. The letter has to specify the communication channels to be used between the auditor and the client. The letter has to describe the scope and content of audit report. It also has to address any additional reports or communication that may be required. All that has to be part of the agreement. It has to be agreed early on the reporting, okay? Communication channels. Then we need to cite confidentiality candidates, confidentiality and data protection. Confidentiality and data protection. Confidentiality and data protection. The letter has to outline how confidential information will be handled and protected during the engagement, because the professional may have access to sensitive information of the client, so there has to be confidentiality clauses. And also the letter has to address any privacy regulations that may or will apply. You understand? Confidentiality and data protection issues has to be part of the engagement letter. There could also be other matters. Other matters, we can group the rest as other matters. Other matters, and other matters would be things to do with the additional terms and or conditions relevant to engagement, such as use of specialists. Use of specialists. What are the terms and conditions in the event that the professional may use other experts or specialists? Because in carrying out an audit, for example, the auditor may not have all the skills and knowledge and expertise or competence to carry out an audit. The auditor may require input from other specialists like valuers. If that will be the case, then that has to be agreed upon before starting the engagement. It has to be part of the agreement. What will be the terms and conditions when using other specialists? You understand? There is also the issue to do with access, for example, to internal, let me say, access to internal control system reports. Sometimes the auditor may require or may need to rely on the work of the internal audit function. So there has to be terms and conditions on how the auditor will access the internal control system reports. The internal control system reports. Okay, access to internal audit reports or other relevant information. You understand? Other matters could be termination clauses. Termination clauses, and so on. Then lastly, number 9, candidates, we can have signatures. We have signatures. Because it is a contract, then the two parties have to append their signatures. Both the practitioner and the client, or even their, say, authorized representatives, they should sign and date the engagement letter to signify the agreement to the terms. You understand? Signatures. Candidates, will you forget that one as part of the elements? Signature is also part of the elements of an engagement letter. Both the auditor and the client should sign and date the engagement letter to signify their agreement to the terms of the assurance or non-assurance engagement.